Well, geez, you look at that poll and you wake up and you're like, "Holy Mother of God!" Like,
I
do I
appreciate
think
you
that
saying
she's
Mother
going
of
to?
God, but continue.
Do I think she's going to win Iowa? No, I don't. But what you see in these numbers, Jen, is enthusiasm and momentum. And you and I have been talking for a while.
Now, recent polling from Iowa has delivered a surprising twist, sparking significant discourse among analysts and commentators.
Getting that striking new poll out of Iowa. Dasha mentioned it. What can you tell us about that?
Wow, this has thrown the political world for a loop because neither party, go back here, neither party has been treating Iowa as a battleground at the presidential level. Remember, Donald Trump did incredibly well here in 16 and 20, won by more than 8 points. This would be, if this actually happened, Harris ahead by 3 over Trump in Iowa. That would be an 11-point shift for Harris in Iowa. What is the climate in Iowa? One thing that might be notable here is you look at where Harris is drawing her support from in this Des Moines Register poll. Among women, 20-point advantage over Trump. This is particularly strong for her independent women and senior women. Trump obviously doing better with men. But one thing to keep in mind in Iowa, abortion has been front and center there with that new 6-week ban that went into effect this summer.
So, recent polling from Iowa has delivered a surprising twist. And what has happened is it's sparking a very significant discourse amongst analysts and commentators like myself. So, an Emerson poll released earlier today showed former President Trump leading by roughly 10 points in the state of Iowa. However, this 10-point margin was soon followed by a Selzer poll, which painted a vastly different picture. Now, what the Selzer poll showed was that Kamala Harris was in fact ahead by 3 points, which is a dramatic and unexpected shift. You see, the gap between these two polling outcomes have raised questions regarding the methodologies and the sampling size and reliability of these results. So, it's primarily because this latest Seltzer poll reflects a 21-point shift over the past 4 months, which is kind of insane when you think about it, because we're talking about Iowa, and this is a state that has relatively leaned red and has a pretty stable voting record in terms of its history. Now, this has become a significant focal point of discussion surrounding the validity and accuracy of this poll. And it's quite important if this was accurate. If this was accurate, now if this was accurate, Trump's team would have already announced that they'd be heading straight to Iowa. You see, if CNN has Trump up in Pennsylvania by 3 points, I can't understand for the life of me how the historical red Iowa would have Harris up. Now, it doesn't make sense how they could now be leaning blue when historically they've always leaned right. Iowa has leaned conservative in recent election cycles. That's nothing new. So, especially in comparison to other key battleground states in the Midwest, Iowa has leaned right. Trump carried the state by nearly 9 points in 2016 and maintained a similarly substantial lead in 2020, winning by approximately 8 points. Now, this positioning places Iowa alongside Ohio as a Republican-leaning stronghold in the Midwest. Both states have significantly leaned further right than typical Rust Belt states, such as Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Now, given this context, the notion of a 3-point lead by Harris, that runs contrary to popular historical data of recent trends, raising the question, can Seltzer poll be trusted? Can Selzer poll be trusted to reflect the sentiment of a statistically right-leaning Iowa, or is this Seltzer poll just a statistical outlier? Is it an oversampling of some sort, or what's going on with Iowa's polling with regards to Seltzer doing these polls? Now, the timing of this Seltzer poll is also critical as it arrives in the final stretches before the election day. We're only 2 days out, 3 days out from election day. Now, sudden last-minute shifts in polling can have, considerable effects on public perception, and with regards to the candidate's momentum leading up to the election. However, the fact that this poll alone shows Harris leading by such a margin, while many others place Trump ahead, underscores the complexities of interpreting pre-election polling. For instance, if the Selzer poll's findings were indicative of a larger trend in the Midwest, you would expect to see similar patterns of Democrat support in nearby swing states like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Yet, these states' recent polls consistently shows Harris trailing Trump by margins that align more closely with Iowa's historical leaning right tendencies. Now, this inconsistency raises questions about the outlier nature of Seltzer polling and whether the methodology or the sampling technique might account for the unexpected outcome. Moreover, this disparity between polls has sent ripples into the betting markets, affecting how potential voters and analysts and investors are forecasting the election day outcomes. Now, the betting odds, which often adjust quickly in response to polling shifts, may begin to fluctuate more than usual based on this new Iowa data. Now, if Harris were truly competitive in a conservative-leaning state like Iowa, it would logically imply that her support extends across similar Midwestern states and these territories. You need to understand that many of these Rust Belt states have aligned in political stances, usually. Like, they have a similar way of looking at politics. So if one leans right, certainly and usually, culturally, throughout those states, do they all kind of align and have a similar outlook? And it would show. Analysts would likely adjust expectations for other swing states if they believed Iowa were a reliable indicator. However, because this new polling results remains inconsistent with both the established and historical leans and the results from reputable polls, it may simply reflect statistical noise rather than a true shift in voter opinion. Now, ultimately, this polling discrepancy highlights the challenges inherent in capturing an accurate picture of voter sentiment, and particularly when it's an isolated case. This data point by Selzer contradicts a broader trend. Now, the Emerson poll suggests Trump's double-digit lead aligns with Iowa's recent Republican trajectory, reflecting broader regional patterns that similarly align with the state's positioning alongside Ohio. However, if the Selzer poll does turn out to be indicative of a larger trend, it would represent a considerable change in Midwest dynamics, one that could signal a substantial shift in voter priorities as we approach Election Day. This incongruity underscores the importance of carefully interpreting late-stage polling, especially when it deviates so significantly from the trends established over the past 2 election cycles. For now, Iowa remains a state to watch, but the burden of proof lies heavily on whether subsequent polling corroborates or dismisses this apparent anomaly. And that's pretty much all that we have today. We do just have to basically keep an eye out on Iowa because that poll from Selzer does kind of swing oddly in the opposite direction of what most polls are saying from within the region. So let's keep an eye out on Iowa. And election day is T-minus 2 days. In fact, let me be corrected. And I'll see you guys there because November 5th, man, that couldn't come sooner. See you guys.